Hi, everybody. I'm back again. And hello, hello, hello. So it is now the time we've all been waiting for. This is the final chapter. If this is your first time tuning in, I have no words. You will not read the last chapter of a story. I mean, okay. It's your choice. But for the rest of you, yeah, this is the final chapter of the 1982 version. However, I also have this is the 1977 version that was the original version. Now, as you can tell, for those who've been like listening in for a while with me, you know that I kind of have a favorite version. Um, there are some things out of this manuscript though that I kind of wouldn't mind like putting in there. Um, but that's for a later time. Um, this is very, very thin. Like we're talking very brief encapsulation. It actually cuts off, so it's supposed to be longer. That's okay, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and meld the last chapter so you kind of have a feeling of an ending. Um, I'm pretty sure they ended the same way because the story kind of has the same. Like, it's very, very similar. There's just like some minor changes with the how they're talking about things. So really, I think I can get away with this. You're gonna have to bear with me as I like kind of try and well, what I'll probably just do is I'll just read until like the final scene section, and then I'll like skip over to the other book, which has fewer chapters in it. I guess it's weird. Um, no, it doesn't have fewer chapters, does it? Hold on. Let me take a quick peek here, guys. Yeah, it has an extra chapter, so it actually has more chapters. You know. Okay. Anyway, so and then I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm going to be working on in the new year. I'll be reading it to you guys while I'm trying to edit. It'll be awesome. Um, but for now, let us dig into the 32nd and final chapter of Guardian of the Sword. Chapter 32. No mountain high nor storm from the sky shall keep me from my lady. Now all swords are at rest in the land of the West, and I will meet my lady. Sorry, I will wed my lady. My battle friends ride close by my side to bring me to my lady. To the hills I go, to a land that I know. Where shall I wed my lady? From The Ride to Carol Dolan, Guardian's Captain. There were impromptu festivities beginning at that very evening. But though Connell at first thought it would be best for him to be crowned immediately, he soon came to see it would be better to wait to make proper arrangements so that it could not be said afterward that he rushed to the crown with undue haste. Of all the old noble families of Asbelon, only Rourke remained. There were a few distant cousins to the original nobles, but for the most part, the Hygerians had been quite thorough in eradicating the leaders of Asbelon. But there were no lack of deserving men among the commanders of the war host, and there were many discussions about how the borders of the old baronies should be redrawn. But all such speculations must wait, for Connell would not even speak of such matters until he wore the crown of his ancestors, lest he seemed to be buying supporters. 3 weeks later, the coronation was held. 1 week had been slotted for spreading the word in the land, 2 weeks for those who wished to come to arrive. All went well, There is sufficient pomp and ceremony to assure everyone that this was a proper coronation, and among the rest, there were still enough goodwill to Connell that few grumbled. When it was done, and Connell sat on the throne as King of Asbelon, he called Fedrin forward. Fedrin, you have wielded your axe well and nobly in my service, and I am minded to reward you fittingly. All the lands of the Seven Hills are yours, to have and to hold, subject to your desires subject to your duties to the crown. Will you accept? My lord, if it is your will, I will accept. I am likely, though, to prove an unhandy baron for those folks. I would sooner have an unhandy baron as yourself than able to hold the land. The Havartai are nosing around the borders, wondering whether this late war has made it easy pickings for them. Come, take the oath from me. There were others honored in similar ways, and when this had been done, the festivities truly began. Okay, so then there is a scene break. All told, it was not until about the middle of the 5th week after their entry into Corel that Rorik was able to speak a private word of farewell to Connell and lead his warriors out. They took the Icarian Pass, and some days later were winding along the familiar path leading to Carol Dawn. It was a clear and bright fall day, and several of the village women were on its path. I don't know. This is the problem with old manuscripts. That is the last page. There is nothing else of the 1982 version. Luckily, the 1977 version is complete. However, I will try and figure out. See, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to read the last section as it's written here, which is, yeah. So let's do this. Altogether, it was not until the middle of the 5th week after the entry into Corel that Rorik was able to speak a private word of farewell to Connell and lead his warriors out. Some days later, they were winding along a familiar path leading into Carol Dawn. It was a clear and fall day, and several of the village women were on its outskirts gathering roots, which, with meager crops, would eke out the hunter's meat during the coming winter. As they looked up as the warriors approached, one exclaimed, "Rorik!" The little column halted, and Rorik leaped down from his horse, with the Guardian's warriors and the Icarian women watching. The Guardian of the Sword went to meet his lady. And then, epilogue. This is extra. Rorik, son of Ardan, Guardian of the Sword, went forth against the Durakos on a day in his 64th year, and fell in the fighting. Helena of the Hills lived to see her children's children. Randall, the eldest son, took up the sword after his father. Their daughter, Lileni, wed one of the sons of Fedrin Double Axe. Ardan, the younger son, went wandering, and is said to have passed through the Forbidden Lands and become a great man in far off Thared. The shield, which Rorik had brought from behind the barrier of the pass, was never seen again. Those who interest themselves in such things have found several explanations. From that day on, the sword never lacked one to wield it, and it came at last to Darkon of Aventir, and to his son, who was Rorik of the Iron Hand. Book of the Sword by Karan Barandus. So, funny story, because then there's another book after this called Aventir. And that has that has like the more detailed stuff. So, um, and in this book, there's beyond that there are appendices. I won't get too far into them. I'm just gonna read a little bit from like the first, like I put the first appendix, put the second appendix first, and the first appendix second because there was just a lot of stuff going on. But I figured you guys will appreciate this appendix. The first appendix is a little bit of a history of the whole entire world. So I figured everyone kind of would appreciate that. And then the second appendix is very, very, very Tolkienian. It has a bunch of breakdowns of words and what things mean. Um, I'm not going to get into that because I don't. Nobody needs to see me like read all of that. But I will read the first appendix, which is concerning Andrethin Den Clean. In the high days of old, the elder folk lived in the land, which is called Elthanthum, the elder home, and were content. Yet evil came among them, and they began their long struggle against the darkness, and, and great and fierce was that war. Then a time came when younger ones among them wearied of the battle and questioned why they should continue to strive. For years there was contention among them, and at last a decision was taken. The evil bargain was made, and the elder folk, in return for their peace, agreed to give no aid nor succor to mortal men, but lately come into the world on the far off lands. Yet only barely was that pact made, only barely had the lords of darkness left to their new prey, when the guardians of the world came in wrath. During the long war, they had given aid and counsel often to the elder ones, and even the strongest minds quailed at their coming forth. It was hardly necessary to say to the elder folk that the bargain they had reached was less than honorable. Yet even most who disliked the agreement had concurred that it was for the sake of their kindreds. The guardians of the world banished the elder folk from their beloved Elphanthon until they might redeem themselves by giving aid to men against the darkness. Yet for all this, they must be caught in a great and woeful trap, for the evil pact was a thing of shame. Yet had they sworn oaths to said pact, oaths which they must now break, though it would curse much of their enterprise. And so it proved, for the Dark Ones found men more ready for their traps, for skillful lies and shining promises, while men found elder ones strange, a different and distant folk, and few suffered to be allied with them willingly at first. So it was that the elder folk fell into despair. When the dangers of the darkness began to make themselves known, and a few men were willing to stand with the exiles, the power of darkness already seemed invincible. Andrin Denclayan, also known as Andrethin Lundel, Andrethin the Shipmaker, proposed to brave the ban of the Guardians and seek their aid, for war was clearly preparing, and the allies were not yet ready. The trials and difficulties of his journey were set down elsewhere, but to put it shortly, he succeeded. The one called Lehim Le Leduan, the bright wanderer, returned with him to the shores of mortal men, and with them they brought Athantir, the Hope Stone. Athantir was a message, a symbol that all hope was not gone, and that victory was possible. It was an encouragement not to cease striving, and a promise of light in darkness. But Endruthin had broken the ban, and it was forbidden for him to dwell any more with his kindred, and he must roam the seas with the bright wanderer for company. At Morana Field, a battle was fought, which destroyed an army of the Warlock Lord. Yet the entire power of the Dark Lords was not rooted out and erased, for it had been a great and terrible battle. And there were kings and chiefs among the men, had led most of their fighting men to battle, and now stood with barely enough for a bodyguard. And there were hosts of men who had come down for the sake of loyalty to their leaders, and now saw king or chieftain dead on the grass. And very soon contentions arose between the various groups, and it came nigh to being a matter of blows between late friends. So the host broke up, went its ways, content with what many knew to be only a partial victory. When Akar, in his imprisonment, called upon Anderthun for aid, he was calling upon one who had done more than most for the uniting of various branches, all of the allies. It is not surprising that his appeal. Yeah, so there's like even more story. There's even more of a story about Icar and why he's imprisoned and what happens. So that's in other stories for later. Don't worry. I'll get to those. I will get to those. But yes, so that is in the back of this book, which is a version of this, and that is everything for Guardian of the Sword. One more thing before I leave, just because it's going to be a little while. I'm going to take a break for a bit, but not without a preview. So I don't know if this actually has. So this is notes. I don't even think it's actual story. Yeah, this is a bunch of story notes. Wait. Oh, okay. So looks like it might be starting on to another series, because Geography of Harem and Ponies. When I say that, it doesn't mean a lot to anybody else. So yeah, this is a bunch of notes for Harem Saga and 20 Silver Ponies. So there's two stories. I have both manuscripts. I will be reading Harem Saga, and I guess now I'm reading 20 Ponies after that. Who knew? It's okay. It's good, because I really need to step up my production for getting the books out. So I have to really step up my editing, um, just so I can get the books out, because there's so many books, and I do want to get them all published. Not rushing, but rushing. I mean, I want to get a lot of them have been refined quite a bit, so it's just a matter of like tweaking the last little bits. Um, but yeah, so like I was just sort of looking at the pages, and I was kind of hoping I thought it was like actual like bits of story. It's not story bits. It's things like Eridare. Eridare is the high kingdom, formed of the union of several small kingdoms. Beginning at the uttermost east is the land of Hafonair, with its capital Diardis on the coast. Hafonair is bound on three sides by water, to the north being the long bay formed by the mouth of the river Soar, of which more later. Yeah, so just basically notes on that. So I was hoping to kind of learn a little bit with you about that, but this is like geography and stuff. And I think somewhere in here There's actually in the drawer over there where I keep all the manuscripts. There's actually there's actually a map somewhere. I just have to find the map and then I can show it quickly and scan it in. But that's also that. And this all has to get scanned in as well because this is going to be backup the the manuscript that I'm reading, and that'll be coming in the new year. Unless I get bored. If I get bored, you guys will all know it because I'll like post up a schedule once I start. But I'm not supposed to start until the new year because I need to take time off. Um, I just it's been a long year and I need to get everything ready for the new year. And Christmas is coming. So it'll be like a lot of focusing on family and that sort of thing. But thank you all for like tuning in. I really appreciate it. Longer one tonight. They're probably going to be longer in the new year because the chapters are approximately going to be about 20 minutes or so, 20 minutes, half an hour. That's what I'm looking at. And then once I finish the story, I'm probably going to take like another little break for a couple weeks and then start up again. We'll see because it might be a little bit longer than that as I'm doing other things, but we'll see. It depends on, I think it depends on what the manuscript is like. If the manuscript is really close to being publishable with very few edits, then I'll be able to just sort of go right into publishing. If not, then that means that I will be taking a break while I do some other stuff, like basically rewrites and stuff like that. Yeah, but well, thank you everybody for tuning in. And if I don't talk to you sooner, I will see you all in the new year. Have a good night. And yeah, thank you so much everybody for just taking a look at past broadcasts and everything. And we'll be starting again soon. Harem Saga. Not harem as in harem. It's Haram. You'll see it in the title. It'll be good. Anyway, have a good night.